Hi everybody and welcome back. In this practice you'll need a bolster and maybe a blanket or two and a block or two. We're going to do pigeon pose. So come onto your hands and your knees and then tuck your toes under, press yourself up and back for downward dog. Lift your right leg up and back. I call this three-legged dog, opening up the hip, maybe circling the hip a few times in one direction and then the other direction. And then swing it through for pigeon. I'm going to start with the most advanced expression. So my right shin is slightly on an angle, 45 degrees. I can modify this with two 90-degree angles in my legs. We call that 90-90, or I can fully extend my back leg. I'm going to resist gravity by pressing down first to come up and then to eventually come down into a resting, sleeping pigeon pose. To start adding in props, one option is to take your bolster vertically on the right side of your mat and sit up on the bolster, just the outer right hip resting on the bolster. Another way is to move it horizontally and to sit your pelvic bowl completely on top of the bolster. So the right outer hip is elevated and the left front thigh is supported. You can come down as you like. The third option, which I probably like the most, is to take my bolster vertically to the left front side of my mat and to maybe elevate it with a block or two, kind of like we do in other restorative poses, and then just go ahead and drape yourself down. If you need more height, you can also add a blanket, a folded blanket underneath your outer right hip to support that outer hip, and then kind of round your spine to come forward. Of course, if that's too much height, you can lower the blocks to different settings or remove the blocks completely and drape your body over that front bolster and come on down. Turn your head to one side and just enjoy this restorative pigeon pose, or sometimes called swan pose in yin yoga. It's a very popular shape and a crowd pleaser. Take a few breaths. And when you feel ready, come on back up. Let's move the bolster, props, blankets off to the side. And then we'll tuck the left toes under, swing the right leg up and back where you were, three-legged dog pose. Shake it out, and then come on back to down dog. On the second side, I'll show you a modified entry. So come into tabletop, extend your left leg like you just did with your right, and then from a tabletop position, swing the hip open in one direction and the other before you eventually swing it through again into pigeon pose. So just starting on hands and knees, swing your left leg through. Again, you can modify for the 90-90 position, sometimes called deer pose, or angle the front shin in a bit. Keep the right leg straight behind you. Start off like this. See how that feels. Come on down and rest if you like it. Turn your head to the opposite side. And again, we'll play with adding in props. So the first option again is to have the bolster vertically to the back left side of your mat. Sit up on the bolster on your left outer seat. And then come on down. I find this one to be a bit challenging for my body, but you might like it. You can also move the bolster horizontally underneath. I messed up the mat and my words, but underneath the pelvis. So I'm sitting elevated on top of the bolster. This one is really nice, but it is a little bit more intense for the hip opening portion of the posture. And the third option, which I prefer the most, is to drape the bolster vertically to the right top side of your mat and then come on down to a resting position. Again, if you want a little bit more support in the outer left hip, you can take that folded blanket with the fold facing in, so it's a little bit more level for your outer left hip. Support that. And then maybe again add a block or two underneath the bolster for a little bit more height. And then you can come on down and rest. The beautiful thing about practicing yoga is that you are your own best teacher, your own best guide. So you get to decide what you like most in the moment. It can evolve with time and practice. And each and every day can be a different experience. It's totally up to you. Again, enjoy this posture for as long as you like. When you're ready, come on out of it. Remove the props. Exit the same way you went in, where we come on up to a tabletop position and swing that left leg up and back. Go ahead and shake it out. Perfect. And then come on down to tabletop. Shake out the hips side to side. And I'll show you 2 other variations. This first one is called seated pigeon, where if you don't want to do the prone variation of pigeon, you can take your outer left ankle on top of your right thigh and rock it a little bit side to side. Maybe walk your hands closer in towards your body. Maybe stay with seated pigeon. Or come to lie down, sometimes called thread the needle. One of my teachers calls this one breathing pigeon. You can massage the hips a bit before you hug the right knee into the chest. Interlace your grip either behind your right hamstring or over your right shin bone. And then simultaneously press the left knee forward. So it's external rotation in the left hip and hip flexion in the right. Supine pigeon pose, also a good name for it. And then sit on up, we'll do the other side. So now it'll be your right ankle on top of your left thigh, or vice versa, whichever side you didn't do. Rock a little side to side from there. This is a really nice one just to do when you're hanging out at home. Increase mobility in your hips. Maybe walk your hands closer towards your seat and keep that action going. Play with just enjoying seated pigeon for a few breaths. Or once again, lie back. Keeping the shape of the legs, hug your left knee into the chest. Again, interlace your grip either behind your left hamstring or over your left knee. As you draw your left knee in, simultaneously press the right knee forward and away from you. So you get that external rotation in the outer right hip. You can either lift the tailbone to see how that feels or press your tailbone down, or just find a neutral position in breathing pigeon or supine pigeon. And then release that. Lie down, take your arms out wide or in a cactus position, and then just windshield wiper your legs side to side. This is a good counter pose for any sort of external rotation. So you get a little bit of internal rotation and some front of hip stretch. You can rest one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. Take your feet wide and your knees in. We call this one constructive rest pose. And when you feel ready, come on out of it. And there you have it, a tutorial on pigeon pose and some variations on pigeon. May this be of benefit, and thanks so much again for joining us. See you next time.